Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So thank you very much for this hospitality, Brother Adil. And just want to add the introduction of me. Actually, I'm a lecturer in here, Universitas Airlangga. This is a public university located in Surabaya, 1 hour flight from Jakarta. And currently, I'm the head of doctorate degree in Islamic Economic Program for PhD. And my expertise is actually Islamic social finance, especially on Waqf. That's why when I teach my student about Waqf, one of the document which I use for teaching is Islamic Relief, the annual report, the rules, and how can the donation that received by the Islamic Relief then invested first, and then the profit out of it will be distributed for the humankind and to all over the world. So that things which is important for me to teach the Islamic Relief. And alhamdulillah, I'm here with the Brother Adil in the office of Islamic Relief. So my research is also Islamic social finance. So many of my PhD students also do research on Waqf, on zakat as well, combinations, and also blended with the suku, with the Islamic capital market and things like that. And my friend, he's a student, PhD student in fourth year in the UOB, Birmingham. He's also study Islamic economics, but in the law perspective, and the central bank is focusing on the Islamic banking law. And my wife is actually the ultimate purpose is actually her agenda. I'm just accompany her. But meanwhile, I come here to also get the. Okay, that's all my introduction.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for joining us here at Islamic Relief. So myself, I work as a zakat lead for Islamic Relief worldwide, and it's involved in the management of zakat and how we implement and comply with our zakat policy.
Okay.
So the specific thing that we'll talk about today is in regards to general information.
General.
I'll give some information in regards to zakat, how we're managing our zakat.
Yeah.
And then we have other colleagues who will give you some information in regards to Islamic Relief.
Yeah.
But because of your specific interest, Professor, with regards to Islamic social finance and economics, and I also see that you have got some interest in microfinance.
Yeah.
We've got Dr. Muhammad Quraysh who will talk about microfinance. And of course, we have Brother Harun Kash and Sister Mahdia who will give you some information on Islamic Relief generally with our programs. So we're very happy to have you here. You're more than welcome.
Thank you.
Brother Kash, over to you if you want to.
I would just give you a brief presentation regarding the organization setup we have, and particularly the international program, which is this division. So the division known as international program, and within that we have various components which we will highlight through the course of this presentation. What we will we'll try to identify the global areas, offices that we work in. Obviously, within this sector, there's a lot of challenges. We will highlight some of those, and we will define for you the organizational setup and the structure so that you understand the depth of the work that we do across the organization. So this, as I mentioned, is International Programs Division. It's chaired by the International Program Director, who manages various departments, as we say. So the division is International Programs Division, and then we have the various departments. We've got Global Operation, which mainly looks after the implementation side of our project. So the operational project that we run across the various regions. I highlight the regions in the later section. We have program quality. This has an oversight in terms of how we implement the project. It makes sure that the project that we're implementing are done to the highest quality and standards that are acceptable within the industry. We have a disaster response management department. This looks at various capacity building initiatives across the globe, as well as supporting response to humanitarian disasters across the globe. Then you have my department, which is Program Funding and Partnership Department. We look after two sets of relationships. One is actually looking at institutional funding, trying to secure funding. At the same time, we also look at what we call our family members. Our family members are the fundraising offices we have across the globe. And we look after their relationship as well in terms of how they put money through to us into implementation of the project. The Global Microfinance Business Unit, obviously, Dr. Frosnay will brief us on that at the later stage. We have orphan child welfare and seasonal programs. Within that, it's an orphan sponsorship program. We have seasonal programs which are based on the Islamic calendar. We have Qurbani program, Ramadan program, and winterization programs. And zakat, obviously, Brother Adil will give you a brief on zakat at a later stage. And then we have an administrative department, which is known as International HR, which looks after the concerns of our staff members across the globe. Within the course of what we do and how we implement, we basically focus on these thematic areas, as we call it. So we don't cover everything. We only cover these elements, which is still quite comprehensive. It does have a wide spectrum of implementation and programs across the globe. But if you were to ask, what do we work in, these will be the areas that we will work in. And we'll go through some of those at a later stage as well. The way we work is we identify needs at the grassroots level. We work with a lot of communities in the country offices that we operate in, and through that relationship and liaison with the communities, we divide the projects and activities that we need to implement them. That is then obviously promoted, and we take donors' interest in terms of securing funding for those projects, and the funding can be a mixture of both family members funding us as well as institutional and external donors. We have to go through a process of preparing budget, service level agreements, proposals, and these are prepared by the field offices. Then we have formal contractual arrangement where we secure the funding, and then we have an obligation to implement projects once the fund has been transferred. Once the projects have been implemented, we have an obligation and duty to provide updates on a regular basis in terms of the progress of the project to both our family members as well as the institutional donors. And by extension, we do have a lot of public donations. So a lot of our public would want to get feedback on the progress of the project. And the question mainly is, we're giving you money, where have you spent it and how you spend that money? So we have a duty, if you want, with our public donations as well. And then we obviously provide feedback on the progress of the project in terms of how successful they are, the impact they have, and the results we've had at the community level. As I mentioned earlier, we have various regions. We have Asia region, which covers Bangladesh, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Indonesia, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, India, Philippines, and Nepal. So this is basically managed by a regional desk. So the regional desk is there in the headquarters, and then the implementation is done by the offices. We have country offices, which is run by a country director, and then they might have sub offices in various locations within these countries. So a lot of these offices will have other sub offices within the area.
These will be our offices. So many times when in developed countries, when you have NGOs, they collect the funds in the country, but then they transfer to local partners. So, they may implement in Indonesia or they may implement in Pakistan, but it's not themselves implementing, they're implementing through a local partner. Our model in most of the countries, the majority of the countries, is actually our own stuff. So that's our
direct implementation.
Direct implementation.
But obviously, there's some legislation which means that we have to operate slightly different. So, for example, in Indonesia, we have to establish a local entity. So we could establish a local entity in Indonesia. In Nepal, we can't work directly. We have to work with local partners. So there's a different modality there. Same with Myanmar, we have to work with local partners. With the other country, we have direct implementation. So we have our own setup and we work directly on the ground. So it depends on the legislation in the country. And in the past, for example, in Indonesia, we were directly implementing, but then when the government changed the ruling, it meant that we couldn't operate as an external entity, so we had to establish a local office in that. So there's variations across the globe.
The office in Jakarta?
Office is in Jakarta, that's headquarters. Then we have East Africa, which is Kenya, Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, and Ethiopia. This is the regionalized office. So as I mentioned, for Asia, the regional desk sits there. For East Africa, it sits in Kenya. So Kenya has a kind of regional approach where they will then have the staff members that will look after these countries from Kenya, rather than from the headquarters here in Birmingham.
Okay.
And then we have West Africa, and then we have the Middle East as well. These are examples of some of the projects that we implemented across the various regions that we have, especially in this one is in West Africa, in Niger. It just gives you an indication of the type of activities that we implement. There's multi-sectorial focuses. We won't just go on with one initiative. The initiative could be overlapping, and it could be, for example, income generation, could be sustainable livelihood, could be cash for work, it could be shelter, could be health. So we have various activities depending on the needs on the ground.
Yeah, right.
This is one example of food security, which is a big initiative for us because there's major concerns across the globe related to food security. As you know, for example, Sudan is one of our biggest projects at the moment due to the fact that the crisis is quite extensive and protracted, in the sense it's ongoing. We've been in Sudan, I think, maybe 30, 40 years. And I think one of our first offices was in Sudan as well. In the previous crisis, but we've sustained ourselves for many years there. And we have a massive program there to implement to the current crisis in Sudan.
Okay.
Middle East, which is again one of our most active and biggest regions, Lebanon, Turkey, and Syria. We've got Jordan, Russia is in Chechnya, I believe, Bosnia, Iraq, Kosovo, Albania, Palestine, and Yemen. As you can see, they're quite complex projects there. We do have a project in Gaza. We're providing on a regular basis, working with partners on the ground to provide hot meals, non-food items, psychosocial support, support for orphans, medical items, hygiene kits. Again, it's ongoing, quite complex operation, but we've been on the ground for many years. Again, I think our presence in the region has been there at least maybe 20, 30 years, if I remember correctly. It's been a very extensive program, of course, very difficult program as well. West Africa is a much more smaller region, but again, these are some of the poorest countries around the globe. Mali, Malawi, Niger. We've been operating in these countries again for many decades. Very complex operation, but very needy as well at the same time. You don't often find them on the news or publicized a lot, but there's a very dire need in the area. Global Microfinance Business Unit, I think, Doc, if I can, maybe you can skip that for now. Yeah, we'll skip that for now and then we'll come back to it because I think Doc got his own. But just to give you an indication of the scale and the scope of the program that we run and the Global Microfinance, multiple countries, multiple millions of dollars worth of loans that have been dispersed since its inception, started in 1994. With an excellent recovery rate as well, as you can see. But of course, Dr. will provide you with the background on that. Program funding in partnership, I mentioned briefly, my department, we do have a number of key relationships with government agencies across the globe. We have to maintain that, and that gives us legitimacy in the industry. We're respected, we're approachable, and we can tap into funding across the globe because of our abilities and our scope of work that we do and the scale that we can operate under. We are constantly developing partnerships, and this is a type of partnership where, for example, we're talking to you, we talk to academia, we talk to professionals, we talk to different organizations, and we try to look for mutuality. How can we work collectively together? And there's a lot of needs across the globe based on the various sectorial focus that are within the industry. Institutional funding, obviously, a big thing for us. We're recipients of major funding from various foreign donors. We have relationships with the British government, with the Swedish government, and across the globe we work with most of the UN agencies. We're a key partner with a lot of them across the globe. And again, it varies on supporting various protracted crises and other areas. And we provide project support and advisory to internally within the organization for people and members of our offices that want support in terms of funding and creating partnerships across the globe. As I mentioned earlier, we have program quality, which looks at in terms of how we implement our project to make sure we're implementing using best practice and also industry standards, which are, again, they give us legitimacy in the industry, make sure that people have, we have more accountability in terms of how we implement our project, in terms of how our money is spent, and it ensures that we're able to provide the highest quality of services, not just to the donor, but also to our right holders, to whom we present our operational project to them.
Stakeholder.
We have very internal systems. These systems provide us with monitoring mechanism as well as evaluation mechanism, accountability, and learning. So it's a process whereby we're constantly documenting and tracking progress of our operation. We're making sure that the standards that are required by the industry and by our own accountability have measures put in place. We have benchmarks across the organization, and we make sure that we're constantly monitoring them to evaluate whether we're achieving those benchmarks. We have two internal systems, the Global Program Monitoring System and the ISLAM, which is an internal mechanism. So they provide a list of criteria of how we make sure we're ensuring good practice within the organization, as well as making sure that we're held accountable for any kind of evaluations of how we do our program and activity. Underpinning all of that, obviously, the global technical experts, where in terms of trying to achieve these standards, we have protection and inclusion, which includes child protection, safeguarding, gender, older people, people with disabilities, and we have a department which assists us in conflict and social cohesion, because in a lot of the countries that we operate in, there's obviously conflict, there's interaction that we need to be aware of, and we try to ensure that we can provide the best support to countries across the globe. That basically sums up our program quality department, and it is underpinned by the core humanitarian standard, which is an external standard which has been adopted by many of the international agencies across the globe. It has a very high scrutiny, and it will be evaluated on it and monitored. I think every 2 years or so we get evaluation done on it to make sure that we're continually certified as being up to the standards that's required within the industry. Not every organization has it, but the ones that do have it, it sets the standard of high quality and good accountability. It's an important measure in the industry. Program Quality Department also provides technical support to learning, bid support, staff capacity, and internal engagement. This is that core humanitarian standards. These are some of the areas that the standards basically require us to comply on. And within the scope of it, we get audited, where they will check our operations across the globe to make sure that we're fulfilling these standards. And if we fulfill the standards, then we maintain the kind of a certification. And we've been doing it for many years now. And it's a good standard. I mean, it's quite complex. I can't go into details of what it is, but it's underpinned, like I said, by accountability systems, whereby we're constantly monitoring and making sure that the standards have been completed and are up to the value. You can check the standards on the CHS website, so you don't need to go for this one, but if you link up to the CHS website, it will give you the whole indication of process of how we do it. And a lot of organizations are doing that. A quick brief on the child welfare program. Up to 93,000 orphan sponsors on a one-to-one basis. So this is basically individual donors from across the globe providing us on a regular monthly basis payment towards a single orphan. But the program started off as simply as a sponsorship program, and now it's moved into child welfare. So we support them beyond just a simple sponsorship program. We incorporate, for example, the Eid Kids, Qurbani, and Winter Assistance Kids. So it's become a bit more wider. It started off as a one-to-one program, but we realized that the needs are wider, and we maintain that by providing additional support to the orphans across the globe. Currently standing at 93,000 individuals. But I think I'll skip that.
Skip Scott.
The International Human Resource, this is just an administrative department. Not much we can elaborate on there, but it just provides support to the region.
Right. Because we have somewhat 2,500, 3,000 staff.
Yeah, about 3,000, just over 3,000.
Worldwide.
worldwide
throughout the whole
offices.
global
So
operation.
Wow.
And it fluctuates, obviously, if there's a crisis, for example, an earthquake or floods or disasters like that, then the staff will increase. But normally it's around about 3,000.
3,000. Wow.
Disaster response management department looks at the lead in global disaster preparedness, supporting disaster preparedness. We basically started off as a disaster humanitarian organization. So our main piece of work, or if you want a major focus even now, is humanitarian response. But of course, we diversified throughout the year into long-term sustainable programs. And of course, we brought in zakat, we brought in microfinance. We have climate action program. So the variety of the program has changed now. But our initiation, if you want, was initially disaster response. So this still forms a core part of our operation, and we across the globe, 326 emergency projects, and we reached out to roughly 8.7 million individuals across the globe through the course of last year. So there's multiple programs in terms of food security, disaster response, non-food items, etc., including also support, Qurbani, Ramadan, and the Qatar project as well. Just a quick breakdown on that. This is the impact we've had. Just in 2023, you can see the numbers are there in terms of how we distribute and operate across the globe to make sure that the right holders can benefit from our project and activity. Just a brief breakdown of the total reach in 2022, 16.5 million, and this is how the numbers are distributed across the globe. With, again, as I mentioned earlier, humanitarian program are one of our largest programs across the globe. We do have development and advocacy, often sponsorship, as well as seasonal programs as well. And in terms of expenditure, that's our income for 2023 in the region of 235.1 million UK pounds. And that just gives you a breakdown on how and where we spend that money. As you can see, it's again, humanitarian is a big chunk of our work, but we also have a growing portfolio of other activities that are constantly increasing on a regular basis. As you can see from the previous figures, we're growing in our income. It is getting higher and higher. With 193 in 2022, 193 million, and now we're going to 235 million. And just one last slide. This is just to give you an overarching view of our strategy. We do have a global strategy which is defined for 10 years, but obviously we have a review period within it, and we break it down. These are the main thematic focus areas that we have within the global strategy, and everything we do fits into this. So whatever project and activities that we have, strategy is there to ensure that we focus on our activities within these thematic areas. That helps us to keep us aligned with our strategy to make sure we're able to achieve our strategy on a global perspective. I think that's the last of my slide. That's it. I will stop there.
Thank you very much, Brother Kash. That was a very quick run through. We normally give a bit more time for this, but obviously because of the limitation of time. So I don't know if you've got any questions. You're more than welcome to ask.
I have a few questions. This is very interesting presentations, and what I want to know is about whether when you receive donations, what kind of donation is it? Purely like infaq sedekah, or you specify zakat, infaq, waqf, and things like that?
We have various what we could call restricted and unrestricted funding.
Okay.
The way the campaignings are run in the public domain, if you want, we can specify exactly where we want the money to go to. For example, there will be a crisis if there's an earthquake in Indonesia. We'll have a campaign running for earthquake in Indonesia. You can put money towards that. But we have ongoing campaigns for zakat and work and other funding, seasonal program. And so for any individuals that want to donate, they will put forward their funding towards a particular concern. As related to the zakat, obviously, will describe how that money then becomes approachable and integrated into the zakatable project. We do have a zakat fund as well, where funding is given by individuals for zakat specifically. our largest campaigning is done during Ramadan. So Ramadan
Yes,
is when
of
we
course.
receive the most income.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
again, that could be broken up into sadaqah, it could be Ramadan food packages, it could be other areas where individuals will donate to. And obviously, during the month of Ramadan, we have an increase of zakat of the funds as well. So we leave it to the public to decide where they want to donate the funds,
Yeah.
and they can specify it. Very few of them is now unrestricted. Most of it is restricted to either countries or particular sectors or particular categories, and therefore we have to spend the money within that.
So, for example, in Islamic Relief in Indonesia, they collect donations, and then all the collected donation will be only in Indonesia, or they somehow can be channeled to other than Indonesia.
It depends on the status of the operation. Most of our countries don't have the fundraising ability in terms of the country offices. Country offices are mainly implementation offices which only implement projects.
Indonesia, we just
Indonesia is slightly
started
different.
having, yeah.
Indonesia, Pakistan, and I think South Africa are what we call hybrid offices. Hybrid in the sense that they can fundraise and they can implement.
I see.
Depends on the local legislation again. So, for example, in some countries you can fundraise locally, but you're only allowed to spend the money locally. In others, you can fundraise locally, but you can give it out externally. So, we have a flexibility in that. I don't think Indonesia is a major fundraiser at the moment. Again, I don't think Pakistan, but South Africa has significant funds coming in, and they can spend it where they want. So it depends on the constitution. But most of our family members, as in the fundraising offices, which we call family members, based in Sweden, Germany, USA, they can raise funds and they can implement wherever it's stipulated. So if it's a restricted funding, they're restricted to that particular concern. If it's unrestricted, they have more flexibility.
And then for zakat, it's you deduct with the amil portions for the this one, right?
Yeah, we'll come to zakat, but yes, so, but we do have, so with zakat, so as Brother Cash was mentioning, when they allocate, when the public is allocating money to Islamic Relief, there's various options on the form online in regards to what they take. So one option would be whether it's zakat or sadaqah.
Right.
And then another option will be, are you giving it for Somalia? Are you giving it for Indonesia?
I see.
Are you giving it for water? Are you giving it for orphans? So there's different options or combinations.
Yeah.
But in essence, what happens is when those funds are fundraised or when they're donated by the donor, then they're tagged from the finance side. So finance will know that, okay, this much was, this is how much was fundraised in the month of November or the month of October. This is how much was from zakat. This is how much was for Somalia, Sadaqah, whatever the case may be for the different countries. How we manage zakat is a topic which we will come to. So I'm going to ask you to hold that thought. If I invite Dr.
Sure.
We'll do that as the final topic.
Okay.
But yeah, in essence, we do use zakat for some of our admin, but it's capped. And there's a justification in regards to how we make that judgment.
Yeah. And with regard to the collections of cash wakaf that you receive, how do you invest this cash wakaf and then you spend the profit?
I think we have a separate entity.
Okay.
It's a separate fund.
International Waqf Fund.
International
Waqf funds. Okay.
At the moment, I think the portfolio is not huge. I think we've been investing some of it into property, but I don't know what.
Property. Okay.
We have. I think there'll be a link to the website which will have a documentation.
There should be something. I can have a look.
With the publication, and you can read exactly. I don't have the full knowledge on that, but that will indicate to you where the money is invested and how it's invested. I think they've diversified the portfolio now. I think when it first started off, we had some investments in property, but I think now they've got some more diversified investment. But it should be available on the website with the link, and the documentation will be available for you on the website.
Oh, okay.
We'll provide the link.
But an important thing to note, Professor, is that the funds that we receive for Islamic Relief are not mixed with the
Waqf. So, but this is same. I mean, different division within the same Islamic Relief.
No, it used to be part. It used to be a division, if you want, within the organization. But then they separated as a separate entity.
I see.
Because of certain kind of legislation.
I see.
And because we're a charitable organization, I think the work may not be charitable.
Yeah.
Still a charity?
It's a charity.
It's a charity.
They put separate entity because they have different audience.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so they separated kind of with 5, maybe 5-10 years ago. But in the beginning, they were part of internal division.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's a separate entity.